In this video session, we'll be seeing how we can categorize the schedule based on recoverability. We'll be seeing four types of schedules actually: recoverable schedule, non-recoverable schedule, cascadeless schedule, and strict schedule, and how to identify each schedule or interpret. If a schedule is given, you need to interpret whether it is recoverable, non-recoverable, cascadeless, or say strict. So how you can actually identify, given a schedule, into which category it falls into. So before moving into the details, one thing we need to understand is, like in asset properties, in the last D part of the asset property, we had seen that the durability property, that is, once a transaction is committed, we should not there should not be any change made to that. So once things are getting committed, it should not be rolled back. What do you mean by rolling back a transaction? Is like, say, I am transferring 1000 rupees to another account, and that transaction is getting committed. So next day there should not be an issue, and uh, that 1000 rupees should be put back into my account. So such issues should not occur. So rolling back a transaction means once the things are done, doing or undoing the operations back to make the transaction into its original state. If we want to take the transaction back into its original state, that is what we mean by rollback. So once a transaction is committed, there should not be any need to roll back the transaction. So that is what the durability property says. Now, there are certain schedules that meet this property, and there may be schedules that don't meet this property. So the schedules that meet this property are called recoverable schedules, and those schedules that do not meet this property are termed as non-recoverable schedules. So let's try to analyze this using an example. But before moving into that, let's see how we can categorize a schedule as recoverable. So as we saw, recoverable schedule means the schedules that once committed need not be rolled back. So that is what we mean by recoverable schedules. So the first thing is, let's try to read the definition and then go to the example. A schedule S is said to be recoverable if no transaction T in S commits until all transaction T dash that have written some item X that T reads have committed. So reading the definition as such doesn't make sense. So let's try to understand using an example. Now assume that there are two transactions. T is there, T dash is there. These are the two transactions. And assume T dash writes item X first. So the first operation that is done is T dash writes on item X. So both the transaction T and T dash needs X, and T dash is writing a value or updating a value of X, followed by which T is trying to read X. I have put 1 and 2 because we are assuming this occurs first and this occurs second. So T is trying to read X that was written by T dash. Hope this is clear. The situation is clear to you. T is trying to read X that was already written by T dash. Now, the definition of recoverable schedule says, in this case, T should commit only after T dash commits. That is, T dash should commit first, only then T should commit. Why? Because let's take the example, like if T commits first, that is, if this T committed first, what would go wrong? Say T committed first. So T had actually read X that was written by T dash. Now after T commits, what if T dash fails or aborts itself? So while reading this value of X, this T dash was in a like a partially committed state. Now say T dash fails. So if T dash fails, the updated value of X needs to go back to its previous value, but that updated value was already read by T, and T has committed. Now once a transaction is committed, we should not roll it back. That is what recoverable schedule property says. But in this case, that is not applicable because it has already read a updated value, and that transaction later on fails. So such situations should not occur. So for a schedule to be recoverable, now let's analyze this example. What if T dash committed first? If T dash committed first, there is no issue. later t, if later t commits, there is no issue because t dash has already committed, so there won't be any need to undo the operation done by t dash. And so as we have read x that was written by t dash, it is quite okay. Now t can commit. It can be a bit confusing, so try to listen it once more. So it is like this, like if we can interpret the statement like this, say t is a transaction and it is trying to read x that was already written by some other transaction t dash. If so, t should commit only after t dash commits. So if t commits after t dash commits, no such issues can occur. Okay, so if t dash committed first, later t commits, no issues occur. Like if t commits first and later t dash gets aborted, it is going to be a non-recoverable schedule. So you can use this example to explain recoverable and non-recoverable schedule also. Now let's see, using a whole schedule, how to identify whether it is recoverable or non-recoverable. Say we have this many examples, SC, SD and SC. Say take the first one, SC. This example is labeled as non-recoverable. We will just analyze why. See over here, X is being written by W1 and that X is later on read by the second transaction. How to identify that? This is written by first transaction. It is why that's why it's W1. This is read by the second transaction. That is why it is R2. So it is read by the second transaction. X is read by the second transaction and this X was already written by the first transaction. Now what does the property of recoverable schedule says? It says that the first transaction should have committed before the second transaction commits. But later on we can see in the schedule the second transaction commits first and after that the first transaction gets aborted. Now if this transaction gets aborted, we should actually abort this transaction also. But the property says once a transaction is committed, we cannot abort that. Now many of you may have doubt why, like if this first transaction is aborted, why we should also abort the second transaction. It's because this second transaction has read X that was already updated or written by the first transaction. So it is reading an updated value for the first transaction, and in later on if the first transaction gets aborted, all this update becomes invalid. That is, the first transaction updating X becomes invalid, and that invalid update was used by the second transaction. So the second transaction cannot exist on its own or cannot use that invalid value. So it has to abort. But if it has already committed, it cannot abort. So such schedules cannot occur, should not occur, or does not occur, and such schedules are theoretically termed as non-recoverable schedules, and non-recoverable schedules should not exist. So what had to be done, if or how can we modify this example to make it recoverable? Say if C2, that is the second transaction, is waiting for the first transaction to get committed. See in this second example SD, you can see this transaction or the operations are the same as in SC, and so the second transaction is actually getting committed after the first. That is, C1 occurs first followed by C2. C1 means first transaction getting committed, C2 means second transaction getting committed. So if the second transaction is getting committed after the first, there is no issue. There is no issue of rollback and all. Another example, SC, actually the first transaction is getting aborted first and the second transaction is getting aborted second. Let's take a minute to analyze this. So it is also okay if the first transaction aborts first. Let it commit or abort. A decision should be made for the transaction before the second transaction commits or is trying to commit. If the first transaction aborts, what we need to do? We just need to undo all the operations done by the first transaction, and since R2 had used the updated values from the first transaction, the second transaction also needs to undo those operations. It's quite okay. If first transaction aborts, there's a decision made that the values updated by the first transaction are invalid. So the second transaction can also undo the operations, the values that were used by the first transaction that it had used from the first transaction. So it is quite okay. First gets aborted, the second also gets aborted, it is okay. So these two, that is SD and SC, are recoverable schedules, and this is a non-recoverable schedule because something that is committed should not be later on aborted. So this SC is a non-recoverable schedule. Hope that example is clear to you. Now we'll be going to the next term, that is cascading rollback. So actually we had discussed the same in the previous example itself. In SC, imagine as after the schedule goes like this, the first transaction gets aborted. So if the first transaction gets aborted, all the values, that is w1 of x and w1 of y, all this needs to be, all this becomes invalid. Now this x was that was written by the first transaction was used by the second transaction, that is r2 of x. So this also becomes invalid. So when the first transaction is aborted, there is a need for aborting another transaction. Now imagine this w1 of this first transaction was writing on x, and that x was used by multiple transactions, not only t2 but t3, t4. There were multiple transactions trying to use x. So if t1 gets aborted, we need to abort all the transactions that had actually read or used a value that was written by the first transaction, T1. So that is what we say as cascading rollback. So if first transaction is rolled back, all the transactions that depended on values written by the first transaction needs to be rolled back. So that is cascading rollback. So one after the other, that is what we mean by cascading. So now when can we say a schedule is cascadeless? That is, cascadeless means a schedule that avoids cascading rollback. So when can we say a schedule avoids cascading rollback? It is when if every transaction in the schedule reads only items that were written by committed transactions. Now what does this mean? Going back to the example, now this read of x by transaction t2, if this is made only after the first transaction commits, that is the first transaction goes on like this, and if it was a c1 over here, only after the first transaction commits, only after that the second transaction reads that x. Remember that x was already written by the first transaction, and that first transaction commits, and the second another transaction t2 or any other transaction is trying to read that x only after the transaction that has written that x commits. If this occurs, we can prevent a cascading rollback. Why? Because if this transaction commits, that is the first transaction commits, and we are using a value of that transaction in our transaction, since that has already committed, it won't get aborted. So there won't be any need for us to abort because that transaction aborted. So we can prevent cascading rollback. So for that to happen, we had to actually delay this read operation by T2 on X until the first transaction gets committed. So how can you modify SC to be cascadeless? If such a question is asked, you need to delay this operation, that is R2 of X, until W1 of X gets committed or aborted. In this case it is getting aborted. If it was getting committed, after this C1 occurs over here, this R2 of X and all the other transactions can continue. If it was so, we can say it is cascadeless. So hope that is clear. Cascadeless schedules are ones that avoid cascading rollback. So just a recap of recoverable and non-recoverable. In recoverable, it says that if a transaction needs to read a value that was written by some other transaction, then that transaction that reads the value should commit only after the other transaction that had written that value commits. Confusing, right? You need to understand it clearly to write those definitions. So that was recoverable schedule. In cascading schedule, it says that event to read an item that was written by some other transaction, that transaction that had written that value should commit. Only after it commits, we can even read a value that was written by that transaction. Only that is, we are making it more strict. So that is cascading cascadeless schedule. So cascadeless schedule means event to read a transaction that was written by another transaction, that transaction that wrote that item should have committed. Only then we can perform the read operation. That is cascadeless. Now the next schedule is a bit more strict. That is why the name strict schedule. In cascadeless, it was like to read a transaction, we had to wait for the other transaction that had wrote X to commit. Right. So in strict schedule, it is like event to read or write on that X, we should wait until the other transaction had committed. So we'll try to understand this using an example. Now consider SF. In SF, it is like imagine X value is originally 9. We are first updating X to 5 by transaction T1. Then T2 is updating X to 8. And first transaction is getting aborted. Imagine like that. Now this schedule is actually cascadeless. It according to the properties of cascadeless, the properties are satisfied. Why? Because cascadeless says a read should be prevented or done only after the other transaction that wrote it has committed. It is not saying nothing about writing the value. In this, actually X is being written by the first transaction and later on written by the second transaction. So this is actually cascadeless schedule, but it is not strict. Now strict says event to write it, that is for the transaction T2 to write X, the first transaction that wrote X should have committed. That is W1 of this W1 should have committed, only then we can event write X by some other transaction. So cascadeless says or prevents only read operation. This prevents read and write operation on that particular data item. If it was written by some other transaction, we should wait until it is committed. Hope that part is clear. So strict schedule is more restrictive type of schedule in which transactions can neither read nor write. In cascadeless, it is just read. In this, it is read nor write an item X until the last transaction that wrote X has committed. Hope this part is clear. Until the last transaction that wrote X has committed or aborted. So we should wait. Like if we are trying to use X, I am saying this once more. If we are trying to use X in our transaction and some other transaction had written X or updated X, then we should wait until that transaction commits for us to either read or write that X. That is what strict schedule says. Cascadeless schedule says we should, for us to read that X, we should wait until that transaction commits. For if it was recoverable and non-recoverable, it says for us to for our transaction to commit, we should wait until the other transaction committed. Hope the connection between these two transactions is clear. This condition should be satisfied. That is, we are trying to read an item X that is written by the other transaction. That conflict should be there. Only then these definitions make sense. So there are 4 types of schedules: recoverable, non-recoverable, cascadeless, and strict. Now, if we say a schedule is strict, by default, it is going to be cascadeless and recoverable. It is like a hierarchy. If we say schedule is cascadeless, by default, it is going to be recoverable. So it is like that. So hope you understood these 4 schedules, and maybe the next session we can take an example and analyze whether it is strict, cascadeless, or recoverable. Take some time to understand these 4 terms. Like it's a bit confusing, so take some time and try to understand the 4 types of schedule. Thank you.